I was working a very intense sales position at a brewery in DC, and I was just overworked. I was working all night and day, and I just craved adventure. I grew up overseas. I was born in Egypt, grew up in Ukraine, did lots of international travel as a kid. With that came this obsession with travel. And so I often caught myself just obsessing and thinking about the next time that I would be able to get out on the road, go to a different country, go see some new things that I've never seen. In comes van life. Originally my dream was a tiny house. That felt very overwhelming for someone who had never really built much in my life. And so I started seeing people doing vans, and that seemed much more manageable.
Hey, this is Ellie. This is the Moose Caboose. It's a 2005 Dodge Sprinter. I got it in October of last year. It took me about 2.5 months to convert, and I would love to show you the inside.
As you can see, this is my kitchen. I opted to have an L-shaped kitchen and close off the access to the front. And so when I'm driving, I actually can remove this guy and see through. So if I hear any crazy sounds or crashing noises back here, I can kind of peek through and see what's going on. And then when I'm stationary, I can just go ahead and put it there and close it off. And so a lot of people leave the cab open so you can just walk through. I decided to close it off because I wanted more of a counter space. I wanted much more storage. I didn't want to have to cram this large of a sink into this area and then kind of like lose out of my fridge space or storage. The countertops are all live edge cherry from the mountains of North Carolina, hand-picked, and so I really like that feature. I think a lot of people don't really talk about the maintenance of having a wood countertop. It definitely takes conditioning. I have to put oil on it all the time. I had to seal it. But it turned out really beautiful, and I love having the live edge. As far as the sink goes, it's a super deep sink, so I have no problem washing dishes. Underneath, I have 10 gallons of gray water storage, which I can empty out here on the side. I also have a spigot that can pull from my freshwater tank. I have a 21-gallon freshwater tank, and then just a SureFlow 12-volt pump, so I can have steady water. And then I put upper cabinets over here that have all sorts of storage in them. So between food storage and plates and cups and things, I went all Melton plastic, dining ware, nothing glass or shatterable. And then the other cool feature I love about this is the backsplash. So originally I was going to do subway tiles, but the weight was concerning, and then also trying to have a grout that wouldn't shatter or break when I hit hard bumps. So these are tin ceiling tiles. I found them at a restoration hardware or a community forklift kind of place, which is just reusable materials in DC. And they came in a hideous, ugly beige color. So I stripped all the paint off of that down to just pure the silver that it was originally, and then hand painted them white, and then used sandpaper to kind of bring out the silver accents. And that also protects the wall from the heat of the stove. And so I have a 2-burner propane stove. Originally, these are made to run off of 20 or 30-pound propane tanks. But I did not want to have to deal with the issues of the tanks. So if you go from extreme temperatures, hot to cold, which you do often in van life, often those tanks are made to vent out the propane, and this can be pretty dangerous. So if you put one inside your van, you have to build an airtight container that vents outside, and I didn't want to deal with that. So I converted it to run off of 1-pound camping Coleman tanks. So that's super easy. One tank will last me about, I'd say, 2 weeks of cooking, on average 2 meals a day in here. Mr. Moose Boos, and he is the most entertaining character ever. I could never encounter another human being and be entertained by him for the rest of my life. We go kayaking together, and he has a tiny little life vest, which is honestly the cutest thing ever. If you go to my Instagram, there's a photo of it. And we go kayaking together, we go hiking together. he pushes me to do things that I wouldn't necessarily do. He wants to go for a walk. He wants to do these things. He loves going to breweries. So if I'm ever in a city, we'll go check out whatever local brew we can find, and he's always the star of the show. And so he's incredibly entertaining. And then the other thing I have is this fridge. So I built it to look like these doors here, but it's actually a drawer. And I use magnetic child locks on all of my cabinets to keep them locked. And so I just have a 12-volt Dometic 65 fridge. It has a freezer as well as 2 fridge compartments. You can see I make lots of salads. And I have a freezer so I can put, you know, I can have ice cream, I can have ice. That was really important. And then I added these grills that are typically meant for to put in the floors in HVAC systems in a house. But I cut them and put them into the doors because it allows the fridge to be the most efficient. So it lets the hot air out and keeps it nice and cool in there. And then as far as storage, I've got all of my silverware. I chose to go the bamboo route because one of my biggest pet peeves driving down the road is having silverware that clashes against each other and makes tons of noise. So going bamboo is nice. And then I just have basically cutting board and other kitchen gadgets, and then all of my pots and pans are down here. And then over here I have some more storage. This is kind of like my first aid, like toiletries section. And then I've got some more heavy food storage, so all the cans and stuff I put down here are jars so that they're not up here. If this were to open when I was driving and I had all these heavy cans, that would be a disaster. And so I custom built all of the upper cabinets, and then all of the lower cabinets I actually got from IKEA. So the cool thing about the cabinets that they provide is you can get 2 different sizes. So this depth here is 24 inches, which is a typical standard kitchen, but these over here are 15-inch depth. So that allowed me to kind of have a much smaller space here so it doesn't block as much of the doorway. And I put all vinyl flooring in, which I think turned out really well. So every good van needs to have a good sound system, in my opinion. Also, I'm a big music festival goer, so I built this in mind to be able to go to those events. There's a radio on the bed that I'll show you that connects to these and plays these right through these speakers, which is awesome. Also, you can see the LED lighting that I have that goes underneath the cabinets and then also runs the toe of the cabinets, so it's super cool to see it at night. One of the top questions people ask me all the time is, what's the #1 thing you miss by living in a van? And I almost always answer that it's like Uber Eats or Postmates because, you know, I'm coming from DC. It's a really large metropolitan area, and everything was right at your fingertips. So if I wanted to, you know, go pick up a 6-pack, I could just walk to the corner store. If I wanted to go to a bar, it was, you know, right around the corner. Having little simplicities like that are like, sometimes I miss that. Because now, you know, when you live in a van, most of the time I stay on BLM land or National Forest land, which is not in the heart of a city. And so that requires me to really plan out my food things. You know, I cook a lot more in here than I would in a city, which is great. But, you know, I have to plan. Like, if a grocery store is 45 minutes away from here, then I got to really plan how much food I'm going to get for X amount of days to make it efficient. And so in that regard, I definitely do miss those easy things that you can get out of a city. But at the same time, living in a van, the benefits of living in a van are so significant that oftentimes I rarely find myself really missing something. I've heard a lot of people talk about showers and stuff like that. That's why it was really important to me to have an outdoor shower that can be hot. But, you know, at the same time, I have to make sure that I have access to water. Finding water can be difficult sometimes. But there's always a really great balance, and the benefits of being able to just pick up and move to a new location, go explore this, go hike that,
climb here, meet all these new people. So all of those benefits of van life are so significant that it's rare that I really sit here and go, oh man, I really miss this. And so it does open your ability to just do so many cool things. And that's something I really love about van life.
And so one of the other cool things, I travel with my cat, Moose, as you can see. Mostly he just naps, but he also likes to eat. He usually would try and wake me up in the middle of the night, 1 or to 3 o'clock in the morning, and nobody likes to be woken up like that. So I actually have a automatic cat feeder that goes off in the middle of the night, and he can just hop down and eat it out and not wake me up, which is primo. And so then I also have my trash can. And then up here, actually, I have some magnetic hooks. So these just stick right into the frame, which is nice. I didn't have to drill or anything, and they are super heavy duty. As you can see, they hold all my gear, rock climbing stuff, jackets, my crazy camo cat jacket, which, let's be honest, that's the coolest thing. So yeah, then we have the living space, living dining space. So in this long bench, I have a toilet under here that comes out. It was really important to me when I was planning out my van. As a solo female traveler, I wanted to make sure that I had some kind of way to use the bathroom inside. Most of the time, I go outside or I stop at a restaurant or whatever. But I didn't want to be in a situation where it was dark outside. I didn't know what was going on. I felt unsafe, and I would have to leave my van. So that's just another safety feature just to have. And it's a cassette toilet, really easy to use, very easy to dump. Then I have more storage under here, and then another bench. So I have a pull-out dining room table, which is also cherry, same wood as my countertops. And I use this to work from, I use this to eat, to lounge around, to watch shows anytime that I don't want to sit in my bed. And then it just can easily slide away. And then under here, I have all of my clothing storage. So I keep all my clothes in these little bins down here, nice and organized, easy to access. And then socks, swimsuits, other things like that. One really cool thing that I designed, and it took a lot of design power and thought, is that these little flaps that you can see here, they actually both come up. And I have 2 pieces of wood that go underneath and another cushion, and it makes a guest bed or a couch. Yeah, I have my bed, so I decided to make a cutout so that my pillows would sit further back, which gives me more room to lay all the way flat. I know that that's not necessarily possible for everybody, for you taller folks, but if you're going to do like van life by yourself, you can also sleep diagonal, and that can fit about a 6-foot person. I decided to put upper cabinets opposite from each other. So I have my kitchen over here, and I have my ones over my bed here, which allow the space here to feel very open, and you know, multiple people can be hanging out in here without it being super tight and super closed in. So all of my cabinets have these pressurized struts, so it allows them to open on their own. Same thing with these magnetized child locks. I can have them be locked, and every time I close them it would be locked, or when I'm stationary I can make it so that they always stay open. So I've got toiletries, things up here. The most important thing obviously are the heart sunglasses. You got to show love, spread love, so that's always good to have them on hand. And then on the other side I have some more storage as well. And then as you can see, the displays on the sides here, so this tells me where my battery is. I have all solar. I do have the ability to connect to shore power, but I rarely use that. So I have 360 watt, 2 solar panels up top for a total of 360 watts. So I overshot that because kind of once you put them up there, that's all you get. It's kind of hard to add them along the way. And then I undershot the battery, so I have a 200 amp hour battery, AGM. And so that I undershot because you can always add more and put them in sequence. And then I have a 1,000 watt inverter, so that is plenty for me. My system, my load is super low as is. I just run the fridge, the fan, these LED lights, which take no power whatsoever. And then I just charge electronics and stuff. But with the 1,000-watt inverter, I do have the ability to run some power tools, sanders, jigsaws, things like that if I did need to, do some updates or something in here. And then with that inverter, it allows me to run 120, so I have a plug in the kitchen if I want to run a blender or something like that, or if I want to charge my computer. And then, of course, I have my 12-volt plugs on both sides. I was telling you earlier about the radio, so this is the radio that connects to those dope speakers, and that just allows me to have some great music to enjoy my life with. And then I have dimmers, so in the two sections, the ones that are over the bed and the lights that are over the living space, I can actually dim them to set the mood. So the other design thing I needed to incorporate was a place for Moose to use his litter box. So as any cat owners out there have ever had litter, it gets everywhere, it can be messy, and it's definitely something I didn't want in my actual living space. So what I did was I cut a little hole, which you can see down here, and that allows him to go through the bench and into the back where he can access his litter box, which is under the bed. Then I can take it out from the back and clean it and do things like that, but I don't get any litter tracked in here, and he gets a little space to have some privacy. So as a solo female, I think that I definitely represent a smaller group of van lifers. So, there's a lot to go into thinking about moving your entire life into such a small space. And then on top of that, just making sure that as a female and a solo traveler, you're safe, you're protected. We're kind of brought into this world thinking that the outside world is a super scary place, and it can be, but really in reality, as long as you're being smart, it's really not that scary. So when I first was planning, I had a lot of anxiety about being on the road by myself, not only just being alone, period, but also just the fears of what that could mean, what I could run into, the troubles I could get into. And since being on the road, I really have just noticed that that's just a lot of fear that you get to build up inside, and then in reality, it's actually a great place out here. So there were a couple things that I did have to think about, like I said, putting in the toilet, making sure that I didn't have to leave the van if I didn't have to, including an outdoor shower, things like that. But more importantly than that, it's your mentality. It's your ability to be cautious. You don't walk into a bar and say, oh, I'm a solo female traveler. You don't go around telling everybody that you're by yourself. So oftentimes when I meet people, I will say, oh, we are doing this. I'm not really lying, I have Moose. He's a great travel companion. But so I just kind of got in the habit of changing the way that I spoke to make it sound like there was somebody accompanying me. If I go to a campground and they ask how many people are in my van, I always say 2, things like that. Being aware of your surroundings. Don't meet people the first time and then go out and get super intoxicated with them. Lowering your guard like that can be a little bit dangerous. So just making sure that you have the ability to change the way that you speak and the way that you encounter other people. There's never been a time on this trip where I've met a couple people and said, oh yeah, we are doing this, and then later they find out that I'm alone. And they're mad at me. It turns out they're great people, I want to hang out with them, and they're like, oh, well, where's your other person? It's very simple to be like, oh, well, it's just me and my cat, once you get to know them and you feel more comfortable. But I've never had anyone be frustrated with me about that. So that's just, a good way to make sure that you're staying safe. Usually when I'm on my way to the shower, I like to take a little break, warm up in the sun, catch a flick out on my projection screen. I have a little mini projector that is all battery powered, so you can just charge it up. You don't have to have it connected to a power source, which is just a really great thing to have at night to hang out at camp. Back here I have my shower system. So as you can see, I hang up a shower curtain, which gives me some privacy, but it also then converts this whole space back here into a shower area. So I'll have my net closed, which protects all my garage space while I'm showering. And the cool thing here is the on-demand water heater. So it connects, I also converted it to run off the 1 pound propane tanks. So you can just get this little adapter that converts it from the 20 pounds to the 1 pound. So I never have to carry a big tank like I had said before. And so it connects directly to my 21 gallons of fresh water. And then you can just use this nifty little shower head, and it warms up the water right there for you, so you can take a nice hot shower, which is something that can be kind of rare and difficult to find when you're living in a van. Then all of the rest here is my garage space. So I have, you know, my oars for my kayaks, my hoses, my freshwater hose, and then my gray water hose. Moose's litter takes up half of all of my space between the litter box and his food and everything like that. And then you can kind of see my 21 gallons of water right here. And so that gives me lots of space to just bring whatever gear I need. Another main question that people ask is, how do you maintain this lifestyle? How do you live on the road? How do you make money? And so for me, like I said, I was in sales, so I was able to save up a good amount of money. I saved for about 5 years to be able to make the build itself, but then also go on the adventure. And so I'm mostly living off of savings. But if I could be anything I wanted to be when I grow up, I think that I would love to help people have their cats be adventure cats. And just be able to learn, you know, cats are trainable. It's definitely more difficult than, say, a dog. But Moose can sit on command. You know, I can tell him to stop meowing before I feed him. He, you know, walks on a leash, goes hiking, all of those cool things. Those are things that, you know, took time to train him to do. So I would love to see more adventure cats out there. I would love to stop hearing people say, oh my gosh, this is the first time I've ever seen a cat on a leash before. While I love being that experience for people, I also just want to help other people, because I hear all the time, oh man, I wish I could, you know, figure out how to bring my cat here. I wish I could figure out how to do that. And like, these are our life companions. They're our best friends. And I don't think I would be able to do van life without Moose. So if there's a way that I can figure out how to help people with that, I'm down to do that. So if you have a cat and you want to learn how to walk him on a leash or train him or whatever, give me a call. I will help you out and we can get the ball rolling. If you guys want to find me for any advice, or you have any more questions, you have questions about my build, about my cat, about me, you can find me on Instagram. We are _Moose Caboose, and I'm happy to help, and I really appreciate you guys taking your time and exploring my new home.